This is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so in this episode, we actually learn a bit of lore regarding Korosensei and how he came to be. And we also learn one of his biggest weaknesses in the entire episode, in the entire series. So yeah, up to this point, this is probably one of the bigger weaknesses that he has. And it's, they built an entire episode around it, and it's pretty sizable. So the episode starts off with Korosensei hiking with the students through the woods, and they're all in their swimsuits. And of course, everybody begins to ask what's going on, and Ritsu actually chimes in that it's likely that they're going to go swimming at the campus's main pool, but she points out that that's less than likely since they're going in the opposite direction, and so everybody is trying to figure out what exactly is going on because of that. He's pointing out that they're likely going swimming, but they find it a bit weird that they're going the opposite direction of where the pool is. At which point, Karma walks up to Nagisa and points out how he's sorry he wasn't there for when he took down the teacher last episode. And sure enough, Nagisa is a bit circumstantial about it, because on the one hand, he took down Takioka with relative ease, but he's doubting whether or not that'll actually be useful on Korosensei since he moves at Mach 20. But in case, Korosensei finally comes to a clearing and reveals why he actually called them all out there in the middle of the day. As it turns out, he spent some of his free time building a pool out of a nearby spring, and help them basically give them the option to go swimming whenever they want. Basically, he just set up a pool for them, and now it's near Class 3E's main campus. So yeah, everybody is happy about it, and they immediately go diving in. Kaede doesn't go swimming due to the fact that she reveals that she can't. And everybody is a little surprised at Nagisa, okay, so I'm gonna say this, up to this point, if you're not, it's obvious that he's a dude, but nobody knew that, and Class 3E knew that. They all thought he was a girl. I should point that out. He's a dude, but nobody could actually tell. So yeah, it's because he dresses androgynously. It's kind of up in the air as to whether or not he's a boy or a girl. He's a guy, obviously, but nobody in universe can actually tell. So yeah, nobody's entirely 100%. But in any case, everything goes well until people start horse playing in the pool, and Korosensei reveals that he's actually a pretty big stickler for pool safety, and constantly starts telling people off about the fact that they really shouldn't be horse playing around in the pool, and that he's there to make sure that they're safe, and he basically functions as lifeguard. At which point, some of the girls point out that he needs to actually relax, and splashes him, which causes him to freak out and panic. And everybody takes notice of this, and Karma, with his morbid curiosity, begins shaking Korosensei's lifeguard stand, and Korosensei tells him to knock it off, pointing out that he could very easily fall in the pool if he keeps it up. So Karma stops, and the class quickly realizes what's going on. Korosensei can't swim at all. So yeah, because of how Korosensei's tentacles work, they normally repel water because of mucus, but as a drawback of that is that he can't actually swim. His mucus usually congeals the water into a solid so that he can actually swim, which is normally how he's able to survive in water. But yeah, he can't. There is a limit to that, and he can't actually go swimming if he notably panics. And everybody silently realizes this, but then shows Terasaka looking over the group and looking on them with disgust. As it turns out, Terasaka is the only student in Class 3E who hasn't warmed up to Korosensei yet. Everybody else is warmed up, and they've all started to accept him as one of their own, even though they're supposed to be killing him, which isn't happening. But yeah, Terasaka is notably upset, pointing out that he feels like everybody's forgotten what it is what they need to actually be doing. And the final straw for him is when Korosensei shows up with a bike and reveals his knowledge of bikes to the entire class. At which point Terasaka kicks the bike over, causing Korosensei to cry, and everybody points out that Terasaka is being kind of a douche, and that he should really apologize to Korosensei, pointing out that that was completely uncalled for, and all Korosensei was doing was trying to show off his love of vehicles to other people, to this class. At which point Terasaka says that he doesn't really hear them since they're all a bunch of gnats, and then pulls out a big bottle of bug spray from under his desk and just whips it onto the ground, which causes it to explode everywhere. At which point Korosensei decides to try and talk to him, but Terasaka brushes him off, stating that he's just a monster and a freak of nature, and that he needs to just go and disappear already so that the class can go back to normal, and then leaves. And everybody's curious as to what his problem is, and Korosensei is a little concerned as well. But Terasaka gloats that he points out later that night as he's kicking chemicals into the water. That becomes important in a minute. I'll explain that. But he's kicking chemicals. He's pouring chemicals into the water, and as he does that, he explains that he actually has a vision and that he plans to do something about the situation, and points out that he doesn't need anyone, and that Korosensei, as long as Korosensei is around, he will never truly accept him. At which point it's revealed what is actually happening. As it turns out, Terasaka is working with Shiro. Terasaka has basically been paid for his efforts, but Terasaka is basically helping Shiro with another plan to actually defeat Korosensei, and they've been having Terasaka do it since Korosensei would be able to smell Shiro and Itona from a mile away, and that they've been leaving it to somebody he's familiar with so that he doesn't pick up on them. And Terasaka points out his plan is thrilled to just be working with him, pointing out that he wants Korosensei to die, and that so that things can go back to normal. And sure enough, Shiro points out as well, stating that they can work together if they can actually defeat him. At which point Itona sizes Terasaka up and points out that he's weaker than as it turns out he's weaker than Karma, but Karma has more vision, whereas Terasaka does not, even though physically Terasaka is a lot stronger than Karma is. So, and as he puts it, a wolf hunts for sheep, a cattle hunts for feed, something like that. But in case Terasaka brushes it off, pointing out that he has vision and he can actually do it. And the next day, Korosensei's nose is running. That's just it. I'll just open that right now. Korosensei's nose is running. If you remember, they explained that his eyes and his nostrils are in the same place, so it looks like he's crying when in actuality his nose is running, and it's gross. So at which point Terasaka barges into the room and challenges them to one last rematch, and that now that they know that his weakness is water, they can actually do something about it, and tells the rest of the class to go and get themselves involved in the assassination attempt. But several of the students voiced their concerns, pointing out that very importantly that Terasaka's a bit of a jerk and is very upfront about it. So why should they follow him? And Terasaka just kind of brushes it off, saying that he didn't really want to share the prize money with them anyway, and then leaves. And after some prodding from Korosensei, they decide to go along with Terasaka's plan, since there can be no real harm to it. At which point they all arrive at the pool. All the students are in the pool, and the idea is that Terasaka is going to try and push Korosensei into the pool, knock him in, and he's going to try and defeat him that way, by having the students swarm. And he also has a gun that he's waving around, which is revealed in a flashback to not be a real gun. As it turns out, it is fitted with a transmitter that will signal to Itona and Shiro when it's time to actually push Korosensei in, according to themselves. And when Korosensei finally shows up, and Terasaka finally points out that this is the end and that he's finally going to defeat him and to say his prayers, he pulls the trigger on the gun, which doesn't actually fire a bullet, as we established, but it doesn't signal to Shiro and Itona that it's their time to show up either. As it turns out, the gun was rigged to a detonator, which caused the dam at the back of the pool, which is what's currently holding all the water in, to burst, and it just and all the students go down the river and out and over a waterfall almost. And Korosensei quickly realizes that they'll go over the waterfall if he's not careful, so he starts rescuing everybody from the water as fast as he can. At which point Shiro reveals the true intention of his plan. Not only did they treat the chemicals in the pool with water, which is going to further irritate Korosensei's skin, but as I previously established, his mucus is usually a barrier to protect against water, and well, his nose has kind of been running all day, so now he has no mucus membrane to actually protect him. So his tentacles completely swell up, but he does manage to save most of the students in the process. At which point, Itona steps in and decides to finish Korosensei off now that he's largely defenseless. And Terasaka is gripped with fear about what he's done. He has no idea what's going on, and he has no idea how he's able to actually fix anything. He feels like he's just been set up and played for the fool. And Karma, who saw the whole thing, eventually shows up and tries to help, and stops and talks to Terasaka about what happened. And Terasaka starts making excuses, but Karma smacks him and points out that he got played, and that he should just kind of focus on the idea of actually saving the students rather than just making up excuses to save his own ass. So, and with that, he leaves to go to help his fellow students. And Terasaka, realizing that Karma is right, begins to make his way to where the students have been dumped out and where they're now standing, and goes to try and figure out a plan on his way there. And as he's going, it's revealed why he's actually in Class 3E to begin with. As it turns out, how he got to where he was is that he was actually using his intimidation methods to actually get the smartest kids in class to help him with his homework, which is how he's been passing on from grade to grade. He's been intimidating people into doing what he wants, which has been established at this point, considering that his first major appearance was where he intimidated Nagisa into doing what he wanted. So, yeah, it's pretty clear that it is a thing that he does a lot of. But as soon as he got to Kunigagaoka, that stopped working. They're more afraid of going into Class E than they are of him, and his intimidation methods just kind of stopped working, and he eventually got sent to Class E, which was fine at first, but then Korosensei showed up and changed everything. So and suddenly everybody had a purpose. And that's why he's taken so long to actually warm up to Korosensei. Because Korosensei showed up and represented something that he hated about the school system, he kind of just started lashing out at him instead. But eventually he does come up with an idea and realizes that Karma can actually help him. He points out that he's actually more of a puppet, and realizes that he is indeed the kind of guy who isn't really good at coming up with plans on his own for the most part, and asks Karma to come up with a plan for him to help him out. And Karma does eventually come up with a plan, and it's a pretty good one. So Terasaka goes to confront Itona head on and whips off his shirt, telling them that they're going to go one-on-one, and at which point Korosensei tries to intervene, but Terasaka tells him to shut up. So Itona smacks him right in the belly, which he's shielding with a shirt. But as it turns out, that was part of Karma's plan. As it turns out, it's the shirt that Terasaka was wearing, due to the fact that Terasaka doesn't really do laundry, is still covered with the bug spray thing that he used to cause Korosensei's allergies. So basically he used one of Korosensei's own weaknesses against him, which caused Itona to start sneezing, and he can't stop. At which point Karma tells all the other students to jump into the water, which causes Itona to get wet, and basically causes his tentacles to lock up and swell, which prevents him from actually being able to fight. And Shiro, realizing that he's now backed into a corner, leaves with Itona and isn't a bit impressed, pointing out that his antimatter organs are that he was a little bit surprised about how Itona's antimatter organs would react, and they leave. And Terasaka is immediately called out, mainly because he called one of the students, a girl, Hana. He called her fat, and while he was trying to assess the situation, and she didn't take kindly to it and tries to kick his ass. And Karma comes in to remark about how maybe Terasaka shouldn't have called her fat, and that's kind of hard to run from the wolves when he has a foot in his mouth. But Terasaka just kind of grabs Karma, pulls him into the water, and tells him that he basically didn't do anything, and that Terasaka was kind of the one who did all the work, even then it was a temporary arrangement between the whole puppet master thing. At which point the other students realize that, yeah, Terasaka's right, and decides to horseplay in the river with Karma and get him wet. So yeah, and everybody's just having a fun time. At which point Korosensei points out Terasaka's usefulness. Terasaka, as thoroughly stated, Terasaka isn't the best at coming up with plans. I mean, the one thing we've seen him do up to this point by himself is that he just kind of took a small little grenade, he filled it with BBs and then had that explode. That was pretty much the only thing he's done up to this point that was an original idea. And even then, it wasn't wasn't entirely creative. Although, I mean, the main thing was that the main thing is they just took some things that he thought and just kind of recycled them. He's not the smartest tool in the shed, but he does know his way around a threat. But as Korosensei points out, coming up with plans, as I went off on a tangent a little bit, but as Korosensei points out, Terasaka isn't very good at coming up with plans on his own, and his plans very rarely have success on their own. But he's really good at following instructions, and is really good at carrying them out. And that even though he doesn't know how to problem solve by himself, he's still really good at helping other people, and points out that that's a valuable skill for an assassin to have. And cooperation is valuable going forward. And Nagisa silently agrees, and then points out that while they were all caught up in the moment, they reveal that Korosensei's biggest weakness has finally been revealed, at least for now. Water. Korosensei can't swim, and therefore that's a major weakness that they can use to their advantage to actually incapacitate him. But yeah, this episode reveals a bit about Korosensei, namely his weakness to water, but also it explains kind of where Korosensei's, and by extension Itona's, abilities came from. Antimatter. It was mentioned briefly in a statement by Shiro, but antimatter is the source of Korosensei's tentacles, and also by extension Itona's tentacles, since they're brothers, quote unquote. But yeah, it's heavily implied that there's antimatter in Korosensei's system, which is what enables him to have his supernatural powers. So yeah, antimatter, I should point out, is kind of dangerous, which might explain why Korosensei is so powerful and why he plans to blow up the Earth. Antimatter doesn't cooperate well with regular matter, which is probably why Korosensei is the way he is. He kind of mutated. It's implied that he mutated because of the antimatter in his system. So yeah, that's a big thing that got revealed this episode. Korosensei initially was a human, as we established, and it was because there's antimatter piggybacking off of his systems that he turned into an octopus. So yeah, that's gotta be something that they're going to definitely have to cover more as the series goes on, since we're already almost halfway through we're already coming close to the end of the first season, and they still haven't revealed that mystery yet. So they're definitely going to have to drop that shoe at some point. But yeah, that's my review of Assassination Classroom. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks. So be sure to check those out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!